Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first Continuing the Conversation studio chat of the 2014-15 school year season. Continuing the Conversation, or CTC, is a network of alumni from the Arts and Education program at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and our goal is to provide spaces for conversations that are important to advancing the work in the arts and education sector, and to get as many people as possible participating in those conversations. You can join this conversation today by tweeting with the hashtag AIECTCchat or going to our website, aieconversations.org, and commenting there on the website. My name is Carissa White, and I am a co-chair of the CTC network, and I'm thrilled to welcome our guests here today who are going to discuss the challenges and the values of silos within the field of arts and education. I'm joined today by Russell Granite of the Lincoln Center Education, Andrea Sachdeva of the Art Science Prize Boston, Steve Seidel, the director of the Arts and Education program at Harvard, and two students from that program who are in the current cohort. So thank you all so much for being here today, and I'll hand it off to Steve to get the conversation started.
Thank you, Carissa. Welcome, everybody. It's good that you're here. We welcome you. We are doing these chats to pick up on some topics that we feel are critical to life and work in the arts sector within the field of education. And today's topic has to do with the ways in which we are silo-ized in the arts sector, the ways in which we are not in communication with each other, sometimes not collaborating, sometimes not even talking, across the boundaries that exist, the boundaries of artistic domain, the boundaries of in-school and out-of-school work, the boundaries of working with different populations and different ages, and so on. So we're going to open this up, and we have wonderful people. As Carissa said, Andrea Sachdeva and Russell Granite are here. Also, my colleagues, two current students in the Arts and Education program's current cohort, Ping Hua and Sean Glazebrook. I'm going to let each of you do a very quick introduction, and then we'll open up and really start to look at some of the pros and cons of the silo-ization in the sector. So, Andrea, I'll turn to you first.
Great. So just in the service of a quick introduction, I am Andrea Sachdeva. I'm the International Director of Education for the Art Science Prize Network. We're an idea development curricular program for young people, starting here in Boston, but now in 4 continents.
Okay. And Russell.
Hi, everybody. My name is Russell Granite, and I'm the Executive Director of Lincoln Center Education. I've been here for about 2 years, but rest assured I have 25 years' experience working in silos.
Great. Great. 25 years working in silos. So you know what you're coming from. Let me introduce Ping.
Hi, I'm Ping from Singapore. I'm a student now at HGSE, but I've been teaching in the arts education sector in Singapore for the past 8 to 10 years. And currently I'm the subject head of the dance faculty at the School of Art.
Great. And Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean Glazebrook, and I'm a current student here at HGSE in the Arts and Education program. And for the past 4 years, I've been working for a nonprofit based out of New Orleans called KidSmart. And our focus was on arts-integrated programming in schools and doing professional development for classroom teachers and teaching artists.
So, we have terrific people with decades and decades of experience together, and as Russell said, decades of experience working in silos. There are reasons why we have these silos, these units that we operate in, and some of those reasons I think are good. They have to do with the conversations that we need to have with each other and what it means to try to go deep in a particular art form and a particular pedagogical practice and so on. But some of the issues associated with the silos are really problematic to us individually in terms of our growth and development, and to us as a sector. So that's what we're going to open up, and it's great to get 4 different voices, 4 different kinds, so people coming from different places in the sector to share. And I thought I'd follow the same pattern, start with Andrea, go back to Russell, and then to Singapore, though Ping is here in Cambridge, and then Sean with his perspectives from New Orleans. So, Andrea.
Steve, I'm going to jump in really quickly. There's a little bit of a fuzz on your audio, so if you all could just speak up nice and loud so that we can hear you, that would be super helpful. Thank you.
Okay, your turn.
Got it. So I'm going to kick us off just by giving a really quick introduction to kind of the lens that I'm seeing these questions through. So basically the program that I run, it was started off of a model based here at Harvard by our founder David Edwards, and basically what we do with young people each year is empower them to create big ideas around, starting with a scientific theme that's really sort of on the cutting edge of science, but exploring that through a very multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary lens. So even when we start with a topic like synthetic biology or energy of the future, young people are just as likely to develop ideas in the arts as they do in the sciences or any other discipline. And I think for me personally, it's really interesting to think about this question of silos because I do come from an arts and an art education background. And this work has really taught me about the power of kind of looking outside of a specific discipline and working together. And I think that when we do that, there are a lot of things that we can gain by kind of working across silos. One is that you can kind of gain a very powerful vocabulary that maybe goes outside of your own discipline that you're used to working in, and that's important because if we want to have people as arts educators kind of listen to what we're saying and be able to engage in dialogue with us, we need to start speaking the language that is spoken in other fields and other disciplines. I would say that this is very similar to what I feel about working cross-culturally as well. And then another really big thing that I've learned is that this type of work, cross-silo work, really can help you to see your own work through sort of a new lens, whether that's a different discipline, a different culture, in school, out of school. It can really help you to reflect on your own work in a really different way. And then the last kind of big learning that I would pull out is that while we in the arts, I think we're often segregated and feel the need to kind of fight for our discipline and for what we're doing in our silo. But one thing that we're not talking about as much is what opportunities we can open up for learners, for young people, for anyone that we're working with by extending outside of our own specific silo. We're often thinking about this in terms of we're in competition with other folks and we need to kind of remain in a silo in order to help push forward the work that we're doing, but we're really able to open up so much more for the folks that we work with by talking to other people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, well, already Andrea's opening up multiple dimensions. I just want to say to Russell and to Ping and to Sean, you may open other dimensions of this sort of set of issues around Silo-ization, or pick up on some of these themes. Russell, let's go to you.
Sure. So I'll do just a brief overview of education here at Lincoln Center so you just get the frame and how we work. We're in about 300 schools, K through 12, mostly in the New York area, but we have programming both nationally and internationally. In addition to that, we're on 10 college campuses in teacher certification program, and just this past year, actually just a couple months ago, we announced that we're the first performing arts center to offer teacher certification in partnership with Hunter College in dance, music, theater, and visual art. We work outside the campus, so we have programming. We like to think we have the highest quality performing arts, and we share that with folks who are living in shelters, in senior centers and libraries across the city in various ways. We do a lot of professional development for teachers every summer, and we have an international teaching artist training program that we piloted this year. Underneath all of that is a bed of research that we take very seriously, and we want to be able to take the learning from all of those programs and report out. And I think that's one area where, you know, I think if we look at being siloed, I think there are three buckets in this work. One, there are areas where I think it's perfectly okay to be siloed. We have a middle school program where we're looking at what are the treatments necessary to turn a low to no art school around to really make it a vibrant place for learning. We currently working with 6. We're going to expand that number. I think it's fine to work in a silo when you're just trying to figure it out I think you need to have some base information and some base knowledge before you invite in all kinds of partners. So siloing is not necessarily a negative thing. I think you just have to check in with yourself and see where you are on the continuum of being siloed. And then I think there are examples where we're siloed that there is no reason for it, and we need to move beyond it. And to be perfectly honest, one example is we had a young person. There's a bridge that connects the building where I am, the Rose building, to the rest of the campus. And there was a student on this side of the bridge who said to one of our artists once, "Well, how much does it cost to get in there?" And we had just assumed that he was talking about one of the big concert halls. And we said, well, we're not going in. We're just actually going to walk across the campus. He said, no, what does it actually cost to get in there? And then we finally figured out what he meant was, what does it cost to go across the bridge to walk onto the campus of Lincoln Center? That's a terrible silo. I mean, that's one that should never exist. And we take that very seriously and realize that we have a lot of work to do here, that every young person in New York City should realize that this campus is for everybody. So that's a silo that there's no excuse for, and we need to do away with. And then I think that there are silos that are kind of in process of becoming less siloed. As I said, we are I think the first performing arts organization to offer teacher certification. And what we're looking at, and this is based on, I'll tell you the genesis of it, where I was meeting with the president of the Museum of Natural History, where they offer teacher certification in science. And she said that principals said to her that what they were getting out of schools of education were science teachers, but what schools really needed were scientists. And that although that's a subtle difference, it can make a huge difference in the life of a young person. So we went back to Lincoln Center with all kinds of support, and we really thought to ourselves, well, what might it look like if we have artists in the buildings, not quite a teaching artist and not currently what one might consider a full-time art specialist. So our goal is a certification program where the art room becomes the studio in the school, where it's a hub of activity, where, yes, there's scope and sequence throughout the course of the day, but it's also maybe that artist studio in the evening, and there can be open classes and dance, music, and theater, but it really becomes the central part of the school. That kind of siloing between art specialists, classroom teachers, and teaching artists have gone on since I was a teaching artist 25 years ago, and all the good work of teaching artists live oftentimes within the class that they're in and not in the building. And we're really hoping to change that by breaking down one of the offering teacher certification here. So I see it in those three ways. I think there are very good reasons to be siloed, and I think there are bad reasons to be siloed. So that's sort of my initial response to the question, Steve, about siloing and how we address it.
Fantastic, Russell. Thank you. And you're drawing our attention to some of the ways in which we've internalized siloing. Right? We make it happen even when it's not necessarily being imposed on us. So that's terrific. Let's turn to Ping and get a little bit of perspective from her experience in Singapore. Come forward.
Thank you for sharing, Russell. And I do agree, sometimes silo work or its advantage, and sometimes when things become too siloed, it can cause problems in promoting education for the arts. So, well, my experience is that I'm someone who appreciates diversity in experiences and what different people can bring in to the scope, to the sector of art education. And sometimes I think coming from different backgrounds, people hold on to the values of maybe a lot more than needs to, and sometimes when it comes together, let's say in a school, and we're trying to build up a curriculum and trying to serve and facilitate the students, all that individual siloing due to experiences of past training and all that would actually work to the disadvantage of the students. So yeah, that is always a big question for me, how in the field, in that pool of diversity, how can we sort of break down those individual siloing and work together to push education for the arts, arts and education forward. So that is a big question for me right now in my stage of education.
Great, great, thank you. And Sean, share some thoughts from your experience in New Orleans.
So, KidSmart, the organization that I've been working for many years, our focus is primarily on arts integration, which is the idea of teaching an art form and a subject area in the classroom at the same time in a quality way. And the idea is that when you combine these two things in a really thoughtful, intentional, and quality way, you can deepen your understanding in both. So in a sense, the work of KidSmart is very much based on the idea of breaking down the silos in terms of looking at education as a discipline and the arts as a discipline, and trying to combine them in a way that really enriches both in the classroom and really school-wide. And I think that that can be a really powerful thing. I think that silos are useful when it comes to developing practices that are unique to each form. So for instance, if we were hiring a teaching artist to go into a school, we would expect and want that teaching artist to have a very deep grounding in their art form so that they are able to speak with authority and really understand sort of the student's journey as they kind of go along the process of learning the art form. So they really need to have a strong grounding in the arts. But what's really interesting about this sort of interdisciplinary or cross siloing of arts integration is they also need to be open and having the practices, solid, good practices of teaching. And that's one of the places where when you combine education and the arts, you know, artists really have a lot to learn from the education field in terms of professionalizing their practice, in terms of really becoming strong educators. And Eric about this, about sort of professionalizing what a teaching artist is and what they can do. And I think that can be very, very powerful. And to Russell's point, actually, really brought up an idea. One of the classes that I'm in here is a class called Deeper Learning with Professor Jal Mehta. And he speaks about the idea of one of the things that we're examining is the necessity of when you go into a class, like a science class, the idea that the deepest knowledge that many teachers can teach, recall and teach sort of surface level knowledge, but when it comes to teaching deeper conceptual knowledge that students can apply later on, they can take their factual knowledge and apply it. You really do require a deep grounding in the subject area itself. And so again, to kind of bring that back to arts integration, one of the really powerful things we see in the classrooms is that what we train students to do is using the dispositions of being an artist, empathy, studio habits of mind, a concept developed here at Harvard at a Project Zero, to really take on the role of an expert, of a scientist, or a mathematician, kind of take on these ideas and be able to sort of think forward. And that could be an area where breaking down silos can be very powerful.
Great, thank you. So we have just a couple more minutes to share some responses. I'm going to just put one thought out, but then I would like to invite everyone to share one more thought if you'd like to. I'm picking up on Ping's thought about the valuing of diversity and difference. I think that part of the dynamic that I've experienced myself as an arts educator and watched in my colleagues is the desire to hang out with the people who do the kind of work you do largely in the same way that you do it. I mean, I think it's kind of, there's a lot of insecurity in our work, and we're not exactly the most popular kids on the campus. So, you know, when we find people with whom we really connect, we tend to, you know, form a group with them. And I think there's lots of reason for that, and Russell and Sean both have really talked about, you know, when those groups can really be the lab or the studio in which you do a lot of deep work and you go much further. So that's clearly can be very valuable. But it can also really hold us back. And I think as a sector, just sort of looking from above a little bit, that is, you know, at the larger view of the sector, we're not getting the advantage we could get from each other, working in across the boundaries that we have typically. So I'm just curious in relation to that, or anything that anyone else has said. And Russell, I'm going to sort of turn to you. Do you have a thought that you'd like to share? And these will probably be our last round of thoughts.
Sure. I have a few thoughts, so I'll keep them short. Ping, one thing is we're going to be in Singapore, so we have to connect before we go over there. We have a program over there, so we want to make sure that we loop you into what we're doing there. The one thing that, and where I'd like this conversation to continue is, I think, breaking down silos. That's a repeated theme that I've heard, in years past, and I think it's a real skill. And if we can begin an exchange online around what are concrete examples of what that looks like, I think it's an easy thing to say, to break down silos, but I don't necessarily know that everybody has that skill set. And I think the more that we can give concrete examples of what we mean by that, I think the greater that will be to everyone kind of buying into this and trying to figure out how to break down silos. So I do think the general rule is we have to assume best intentions and then move forward from that. I think we work in silos. Sometimes we don't know we work in silos. If we do work in silos, what are the 3 things I need to do to convey that to to my partner or my series of partners? So I would love for that particular conversation to continue after this forum.
Russell, that's terrific, and I love the notion of really trying to think hard about the skills of crossing boundaries and moving them. I'd like to go next.
I think, I think I would say one of the things that I found, and Steve, you spoke a little bit to the dangers of some of the dangers that can occur in breaking down the silos sometimes, and why those silos might exist. And one of the things that we've seen in terms of specifically in arts integration, but I think any time that fields cross, is a natural sort of phenomenon for one field to begin to potentially dominate, and we have to be very aware and very intentional and thoughtful when we do cross fields, whatever they are, whether they are arts and education or other fields, to make sure that the values of both are being continued throughout the project, whatever it is. And I know that can happen, just as an example in arts integration. If you go into a classroom, for instance, if a teacher is really responsible and they're being evaluated for teaching certain skills in the curriculum, and if an artist comes in and they feel that the lesson is grounded too heavily in the arts and the curriculum isn't being covered enough, that may feel threatening on that level, and vice versa. If an artist feels that they're coming in and they're just sort of doing some arts enhanced, we're going to play around a little bit, but we're not really going to get into the depth of the art form, that can also feel threatening in that way. And so one of the things that we found in terms of being very effective in avoiding that and kind of avoiding those dangers is having that open dialogue right from day one, being very clear with one another. This is my value, this is your values, and we're going to work together and reflect constantly how we can respect one another and make sure that both of our various areas, values, are being respected, so we can avoid those dangers.
Great.
Yeah, I would just kind of pick up on what both Sean and Russell were saying, especially Russell, to your comment just about needing to provide examples. I think just in the work that I have done, people are really looking for great examples of how some of these sort of cross-silo projects work. And this is especially something that I've seen a lot in in-school environments, that there's a lot of flexibility that's allowed in after-school programs or in nonprofits working with each other. To put that in the context of an in-school environment has a lot more tricky intricacies involved, and I think the field is really looking for great examples and kind of how-to guides of what makes that work really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm also going to pick up on good intentions mentioned by Russell and what Sean said, what is of value. So for me, most of the content is we as teachers, as educators, as people, we can plan with good intentions, but who is at the receiving end of our good intentions? And we want to, for me personally, it is that matching of our good intentions and what the recipients are actually facing and experiencing from the experiences and the things that we plan. So for me, I'm curious to also find out that meeting of the good intentions with the students who actually receive it.
Great. Okay. Thank you all, Russell, Andrea, Ping, Sean, for sharing your thought. As Russell said, this is not a new conversation. It's a conversation that we need to make progress on. We need to continue it because we've been talking about it for a long time, but we're still struggling. Carissa, I hand it back to you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you all so much for joining us today. As Russell suggested, we'd love for this conversation to keep moving forward, so you can view this recording. Will be on our website, aieconversation.org, and you can add your comments and leave your concrete examples of how you have worked to cross over and break down silos, what's working for you, what's making this a difference in the arts and ed community. Join us for our next studio chat. Will be on October 17th at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be discussing learning from informal learning, what hip-hop artists can teach arts educators. And we'll have some program managers from the Fresh Prep program at Urban Arts Partnership in New York City joining us for that call. We appreciate everyone's time. Please share the link to this broadcast with your network so we can really get some great conversations going on the website. And everyone have a great day. Thank you.